All right, I'll call the meeting to order at 7:02. Can we have a roll call, please?
Mr. Allred,
Present.
Mr. Andreessen,
Present.
Mr. Fell,
Here.
Mr. Hopkins,
Here.
Ms. McFarland,
Present.
Mr. Rose,
Here.
Ms. Sims, Ms. Yu.
Here.
All right, so it looks like we have a quorum. Any changes to the agenda? Mr. Ricci?
No, no changes.
All right, approval of the minutes. Approval of the minutes from the March 7th regular meeting of the Plan Commission. Are there any motions or comments on the minutes from our last meeting?
I'll move to approve the minutes from March 7th.
All right, we have a motion by Mr. Hopkins. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Andreessen. Any discussion of the minutes? Any changes? If not, we'll do a voice vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? All right, that passes. Communications. Do we have any communications?
No communications.
And continued public hearings. We have no continued public hearings. Old business. We have no old business, which brings us to our new public hearing for this evening. Plan case number 2490M24, an application by Mark Allen to rezone a portion of 710 Cunningham Avenue from AG Agriculture to B3 General Business. Is there a staff presentation?
There is a fabulous staff presentation.
All right, so I'll turn it over to you, Mr. Ricci.
Mark Allen requests to rezone a portion of 710 Cunningham Avenue from agricultural to general business. The proposed rezoning would permit the expansion of the existing auto repair shop and still provide access around the building. Staff recommend approving the proposed rezoning as it satisfies the rezoning criteria. Mr. Allen is here tonight to answer questions if you like. The existing site containing the Speed Lube number 6 auto repair shop is a half acre located on the east side of Cunningham Avenue. That's this parcel here with the building. North of the Saline Branch drainage ditch, which runs generally east-west here. Bounded on the east and south by East Lawn Burial Park and on the north by AJ's Station. So we have a little close-up of the existing site. The subject property is this strip of land east of these two billboards along the south property line of the Speed Lube property. The land to be rezoned is a 15-foot wide by 175-foot long strip along the southeast property line between Speed Lube's parking lot and the saline ditch. This is the local land use. We've got shopping and business and trade in these two parcels. This is AJ Station to the north. The East Lawn Burial Park is listed as institutional. And then we've got some residential sprinkled through here as well as some other residential lots. The Speed Lube property and almost all of the land along both sides of Cunningham Avenue are zoned B3 general business. The cemetery property is, including the land to be rezoned, is zoned agricultural. The future land use in this area shows community business along the west side of Cunningham Avenue as well as for these two parcels, and then the balance of the east side of Cunningham Avenue is institutional, reflecting the cemetery use. Here is an aerial of the property. One correction, Mr. Allen, I had originally said that the building expansion was proposed to be this corner, kind of filling this corner out. It's actually back here where the fenced area is, so it's actually further away from the south property line where they would like to expand the building. A little close up there. Here we have a shot looking northeast at the existing Speed Loop property. Here we're looking southeast towards the saline drainage ditch. The strip would start about here and then run all the way back along the southeast of the property back to the southeast corner. As far as I can tell, I saw a property pin. The strip would actually include some land that is already occupied by parking lot. It's not surprising that things might not line up for something that's been there for 70 years. So there's the property pin, and the yellow polygon is showing where the strip is. This flag shows the actual southwest corner of the proposed strip. Now we're on the south line facing towards Cunningham. The strip would be here. The proposed building would actually be here in the area of the fenced-in area. Ignore this and shift the orange block over to the right, to where the other set of gutters are. So we won't get ahead of ourselves. The applicant wants to expand the auto repair shop by approximately 140 square feet at its corner. This expansion would be within the bounds of the existing parcel, but they need additional land to provide safe access around the expanded building and to provide for larger vehicles. East Lawn Burial Park has agreed to sell the additional land, but it must be rezoned to a classification that would allow automobile truck repair. The current ag zoning doesn't allow that, and the proposed B3 district does. The applicant has also applied for a certificate of exemption to add this strip of land to their land. That has gone through the external plat review process and is simply awaiting the decision on the rezoning before that document gets recorded, because they're not going to buy the land if they don't get the rezoning. The property and the surrounding land were zoned A residence in 1940, and by 1950 were zoned R1. At that time, the cemetery was outside city limits. Since then, there's been a lot of development and many rezonings. In 1979, the subject property and the west side of Cunningham was rezoned to B3, and the cemetery on the east side of Cunningham was rezoned to ag, including this strip. The comprehensive plan shows the property in a transition area between institutional and community business. So this rezoning, I believe, would be in line with that. The staff report reviewed the 8 LaSalle and Sinclair zoning criteria and found that it met all 8 criteria, including existing land use and zoning of nearby property, effects on property values, relative public and private gain, property suitability for the proposed use, and length of vacancy. And findings were that it would simply expand the existing B3 zoning district and would maintain the existing compatibility with the adjacent ag zoning district. The proposed rezoning to B3 would be compatible with the adjacent neighborhood business future land use designation by the comprehensive plan, and it meets all 8 of the rezoning criteria. Staff recommends that Plan Commission forward the case to City Council with a recommendation to approve the request to rezone a portion of 710 Cunningham Avenue for the reasons articulated above. When you render your decision, would you please either state your own findings or state that you accept whichever of any, if any, of the staff findings? That's at the end of my presentation, and Mr. Allen is here to answer questions, as am I.
Thanks, Mr. Ricci. Are there any questions for staff? Mr. Fell.
Is your mic on?
Point of clarification of why it was done this way. We have this piece of U-shaped land, right? And we're going to cut a section off of that and rezone a piece of it. And I don't I don't have my zoning ordinance in front of me, so I don't know what the setback requirements are for these different zoning districts or things like that. But we just potentially created a piece of ground that's much harder to construct anything on. Granted, it abuts the boneyards, we have all kinds of other issues. Is it more logical to rezone this whole property, just rezone this U-shaped piece of property, and then let the owners of the two properties deal with trading ground?
That might be the most logical step, but that is not the one before you tonight.
Okay.
This U-shaped piece of land is still one of the pieces, it's the main access drive back to the cemetery.
But my concern is, the south side of this, does this create a zoning lot that is essentially unusable because of sectioning off this piece of ground with the zoning district we have put it into?
So the south portion of this is very steep and slopes down to the creek. It is already undevelopable, which is why.
I understand that.
Yeah. In staff's opinion, this is the highest and best use of this 15-foot strip of land.
Okay, I can go with that.
Mr. Hopkins?
This may be my fault for having read this a few days ago and forgetting what the Creekway permit that we got in April was about. Does this require a Creekway permit?
It does not, because the Creekway district is for the boneyard and stops way far down at University. This is the saline and is completely outside the Boneyard Creek district.
Okay. Okay,
But good question.
thank you.
Any other questions for staff? I had a question, just thinking through the kind of sequence or the order of this, because we've had issues with rezoning cases in recent history where we've rezoned something and then the development didn't happen, and then we have a situation where something's rezoned and problems arise. So you mentioned that they've applied for a certificate of exemption for a minor lot line adjustment.
Correct.
Then that will be approved once the rezoning is done? Is that the natural sequence of things as opposed to that being approved and then the rezoning?
Yes. So for other cases like a special use permit or a conditional use permit or a variance, people will, the zoning permit they often see it as the first step. And they have a piece of property on contract or on a contingency, and they're like, I will buy your land if you get the zoning to do it, because if I don't get the zoning, I'm not going to buy your piece of land. So with a permit, it's easy to, place a condition on it that says, we issue this conditional use permit based on the fact that you do X. And then they go and buy the piece of land, or they do whatever thing. In this case, there aren't conditions on rezonings. In this case, though, it is not creation of a new piece of the B3 zoning district that the city is stuck with if the proposed use doesn't happen. In this case, there's an existing B3 zoning district there, and no harm would be done if the expansion didn't go through. But unfortunately, the city can't control what happens in the future.
Yeah, I guess my concern would be if we rezone this 15-foot strip and then for whatever reason this doesn't happen, then we end up with split zoning on a lot, or how is that resolved?
Yes, and there are other lots that have multiple zonings on them. A very good example is the Brookins campus has like 3 different zonings on it.
Okay. I mean,
And
maybe
not
there are
not-
examples, but is this a good thing to
There's
have
really,
done?
as far as I know, there really isn't any other option. You can either, and even if they did do the split and add it, there's no requirement that they expand their building. So the reason that the rezoning was granted for, to allow for the expansion, we can't force somebody to do the thing that they said that they wanted the zoning for. There's no mechanism in the zoning ordinance for that. Just the nature of zoning, as far as I know.
Okay, did you have something, Mr. Hopkins? I had one other question, but if you have something, you can. Okay, so my other question had to do with the future land use map. So the future land use map, if you could bring that up, yeah. The one thing that the map in the comprehensive plan includes that your map doesn't here is that there is a sort of sketched in trail that runs through this area, and there's a comment on the map saying to promote trail connecting parks between like the Chief Shao, I'm not sure how to
Agra.
pronounce that, yeah, park, and Crystal Lake Park. So would granting this rezoning foreclose that? Is that something that is still, an idea that's being considered, or?
I asked, and that is not on the city's, long-range development for promoting that. If that were going to happen, it would likely be by the Urbana Park District, who owns and operates Chief Chamaga Park and Crystal Lake Park. As we know, the comprehensive plan is 2005, and it's 19 years and nothing's happened. There are quite a few trails on that map, and as we go through the comp plan update, we are cleaning up things that are not on the city's radar for future development. But that also is a good question, and we did discuss that.
Okay, thanks.
We did discuss it.
Okay, Mr. Hopkins?
So now I have a slightly separate question, and that is, what is the answer to Dustin's question?
Which
That,
was,
well, what amount of available land that will remain zoned agriculture and owned by the cemetery, as I understand it, will remain next to the creek?
I would say that there is roughly another 40 feet there.
Before the bank of the creek?
Well, the bank starts right about there at where this strip is. So if this were to be rezoned, then a trail could go through that parcel with an easement that was granted. Again, all of the steps to even get a trail done on land that's owned by the cemetery could be done with the new owner.
Yeah, okay. Who owns, or to put it slightly differently, whose property are the two billboards on?
Cemetery property,
Okay, which is why that chunk is being left
correct.
that
Yes.
way? Okay.
Okay, any other questions for staff? Okay, well, this is where I would normally go over the rules for a public hearing, but as we have no members in the audience to provide comment, well, we have the petitioner, which I'll get to in a second. I'll just offer the petitioner a chance to address the commission, or if there are questions by the commission for the petitioner, you can raise those. Did you want to address the commission? I don't need to. Okay. Okay, sounds good. Are there any questions for Mr. Allen? All right, thanks. Sorry to make you get up there. Okay, so as I was saying, as we don't have any other members of the audience who wish to address the commission, I'll declare the public input or the public hearing portion closed. And we'll go into a discussion amongst the commission and possibly entertain a motion to vote. So is there any discussion on the proposal? Or are we ready to make a motion?
I move we send flank case 2490 M24 based on the findings of the staff report to the city council with a recommendation of approval.
We have a motion by Mr. Hopkins. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Andreessen. Any discussion on the motion? Mr. Fell? Oh, Mr. Rose, go ahead. Is your mic on? Is your mic on? Thanks.
Staff made a recommendation regarding specificity in reasons for the motion. Is the motion made with sufficient specificity at this time, I wonder?
Yes, I would include those three that were listed in the staff report, meeting the zoning, all 8 zoning criteria and the other 2.
Yeah, by our bylaws, if we make a motion to approve, the assumption is that the staff report is the sort of justification for what we are doing, so. Mr. Fell?
Yeah, this isn't, well, I'll state I'm going to vote in favor of this, so this isn't really a question or issue about that, but it occurs to me, and this maybe is more of a staff question, maybe it's not a question. This is a way to solve this problem. This seems like the most complicated way to solve this problem that we have. We could rezone the entire property, which seems much more straightforward. We could also, the owner could also ask for an easement from the cemetery to pave 10 feet of land, which is also much easier. So it's not really a question, but sort of a kind of a question. Does staff help advise citizens about how to do these issues? I mean, I don't know how to ask this question.
The last thing we want to do is drag all of you here to listen to a case that
I
can be
understand that,
solved
but
without-
to me, this
Yeah.
is a very complicated, this is a much more complicated way to solve this problem than has to
This
be
would be a
dealt with.
question that you could direct to the applicant
Okay.
if they, considered using it by easement rather than by ownership.
Okay, that's, it's the applicant's prerogative to do this however he wants, so I'm happy to shut up now.
Could you clarify, though, could they use it by easement without rezoning that?
It would still need rezoned, actually, because you can't use a property for a use that is not allowed by the zoning district there.
Wouldn't they just be paving it? It's parking.
You are driving on a property for the purposes of conducting auto and truck repair.
Okay, I don't want to argue, isn't it just a simple access easement?
You still have to have the property
Okay.
be zoned. Yeah, yes, yeah, yes. And this sort of thinking could be applied to anything. We were looking at a property today where there's no access to it except through somebody else's property, and that property better be zoned for that, even if they're not conducting any business on it other than getting it. And I'm not saying I agree with that, but that's how our zoning ordinance works. But no, that's actually a very good point. Even if he wanted to not have to split off the piece of land, he would still have to rezone a strip to drive on. And that then also curtails anybody asking, hey, they're driving on that piece of cemetery land, is it zoned for business use because they're conducting auto business on it. But yeah.
Any other discussion on the motion? Ready to vote? All right. Could we have a roll call, please?
Mr. Andreessen?
Yes.
Mr. Fell?
Yes.
Mr. Hopkins?
Yes.
Ms. McFarland?
Yes.
Rose?
Yes.
Ms. Sims?
Yes.
Ms. Yu?
Yes.
And Mr. Allred?
Yes. All right, that motion passes. Do we have a date for council for that one?
Yes, we do. June 17th, at which time I will ask for it to be put on the consent agenda, and then it will go, that's actually, June 17th is for committee of the whole, because rezonings go there first for discussion, and then it'll go to council on the 24th of June.
All right, sounds good. Okay, new business. Is there any new business?
No, there is not.
Audience participation. Is there anyone, Mr. Allen, by chance, who wishes to address the Plan Commission for 5 minutes uninterrupted on a topic of your choice? I would just like to thank you. All right, that's good. We'll take that. Staff report.
You're welcome. The only staff report I'd like to make is kind of an ad hoc-y one where to say, Kevin has been hard at work on the B3U campus mixed-use zoning update. They've been having, they had a public meeting with property owners and a public meeting with neighbors to gather input, and is working on the zoning ordinance text amendment for that.
And this is just generally south of University, west of Lincoln, that sort
North
of
of
pocket?
Green Street,
there?
yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Study session. Do we have a study session?
No study session.
Mr. Hopkins?
Before you adjourn, there are 8 of us here. I would like to take note, because maybe the rest of you aren't as aware as I am, but this is extremely unusual. But it leads me to worry about my aging brain. Do we have a 9th member?
No. We have a vacant
No.
seat right now.
Okay. Just wanted to highlight both those facts.
Thank you all for coming tonight and spending a lovely evening, hopefully short, with us.
Yeah. All right. We are adjourned. Thanks, everyone.
Adjourned at 7:30.